Good evening, and welcome to Going for Two. Here, I'm going to even take a knee for this. Just, this is the same.
Oh, we're taking a knee?
This is the only YouTube podcast in human recorded history to feature a male and female host drinking our way through the important topics of the day, as long as they touch the football world, and not in that way. And I've heard some knees creaking. It's not a good older.
I've got hardwood floors. I can't hardly do that.
Yeah. Tonight, we'll talk about, wait a second, the Titans played well 2 weeks in a row. Why binge grilling can be dangerous, how a buffoon president could do what Colin Kaepernick couldn't do, and when is Sharona not mad online? I am Zach Law, and this is Sharona Fist Bump. Yeah, it's her avatar. It's September 25th, 2017, and I'd like to introduce, as I get back into my seat, Keith Myers is back on the show. We tried to get him on last week, but couldn't work out. I don't know what worked better or worse, but anyway, I wanted to get him on last week to talk about a couple of things. My amazing victory over him in fantasy. Wow, this is a show first. I get to have two people on who I beat in fantasy in the past 2 weeks. Oh, highlight of my pathetic life. Keith is a good sport, nice enough to not blind us by wearing the Seahawks neon green jersey tonight. Welcome back, and what do you got beer-wise tonight?
Well, tonight I am actually going homebrew. This is a vanilla bourbon porter that I brewed myself about 6 months ago, and it is fantastic.
Yum! It sounds lovely.
Yeah, I heard a coworker talk about a local beer. They had a bourbon barrel-aged stout that had like coconut in it, and I was like, I need to get that. But in honor of Nashville, I'm drinking the Yazoo Sioux, which is kind of a smoky beer. You gotta feels like a smoky kind of night. After all, we were talking to someone in the state of Washington. So we'll start with Sharona's drinking her hardcore water. This is in quality H2O. So
I actually do have some wine, but I'm cool with water.
She's cool. So the game, of course, Titans, Seahawks, first time they've played in Nashville in 8 years, and I'll be honest, I don't even remember how the last one went because it was pretty rusty.
It was the preseason game a few years ago was Russell Wilson's first game, and it was, I think, the third game of the preseason, and I knew then
don't mind me.
He was going to end up starting, and he was going to be. I knew he was going to be good because he was amazing.
Yeah, I remember. Who was that? Matt Flynn. That's right.
The Matt Flynn days.
Fun stat: last quarterback to throw a pick six for Green Bay. Matt Flynn.
Nope, not anymore.
Yeah. So the game went by the week 2 script. The teams throwing haymakers early on or throwing balls way over the receivers' heads. And it just kind of, I don't know, it's just the Titans. They keep kicking field goals, but we can't really talk about the game without the key player of the game, Richard Sherman. So Richard Sherman, I don't know if it's the first time, I think it's the first time I've seen a player get penalized 3 times on a play. The play where
that's pretty unique.
Decker, then got a personal foul, and then took his helmet off. And I swear, if Richard Sherman wasn't known as well as he was, I think some other cornerback probably would have been kicked out at that point. I don't know. What do you think about that, Keith? I know what Sharona thinks, but we'll let it. She can retort.
I don't think he would have gotten kicked out because I don't think he did. Like none of the individual, none of the personal fouls were going for the head of a player or anything like that. So I don't think they would have gotten kicked out, but man, you get 3 penalties in one play. I mean, that's like instant points for the opposition. Sherm's done some really weird things in his career, but that was about as boneheaded as you'll ever see.
Oh, Sherman took her sunglasses off. That means she's about to tell us how to solve the crime, I think. Wait, is that how it works?
I might have thoughts.
You might have thoughts.
Should be called. I might have thoughts or blame Zach. It's two choices. Sorry.
The rule is interesting, and I remember when this rule was proposed, I was telling Zach, I was actually on the conference call with Rich McKay and I believe Dean Blandino was on that call. Of course, he was the head of officiating at that point. And the rule as it's constructed, I had to go back and take a look at it, is a little bit different from the way that it was proposed. And I wonder if that was intentional or whatever. But the rule itself, it's Rule 12. There are a number of ejectable offenses. There is and that is, all of those are subject to the discretion of the officiating crew. One of them is taking your helmet off while you're in the field of play. There's part of that is whether you have any contact with an official. Now, Richard Sherman did not have any contact with an official, but he certainly got extremely close to it, so close that I believe it was Bobby Wagner came over to get him. The other one, the penalty itself, he absolutely did go for Eric Decker's head. It was not a helmet to head. He tried to take his head off using his arms in terms of the tackle.
But he missed. Oh.
Well, no, I mean, he had him wrapped up.
The head's still there. That's all I was saying.
The head's still there. Yeah, you're right.
He was unsuccessful in his attempt to remove Eric Decker's head.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then the other part of it is, and I can't remember if this is actually in that section. I think it's actually in the automatic ejection section, where it talks about conducting yourself in a manner that is intended to inflame the other side. And that, I don't think they use this word, but I think the general gist of it is cause the other side to retaliate. Well, we certainly saw that later. Any one of those in and of itself is at the discretion of the official an ejectable offense. There's no question whatsoever but that they are. And so the official at his discretion did not, which is fine, all fine and dandy and everything. And then you do get to the, that was the conduct penalty. It was the later one that was a personal foul, right? I think I'm getting them.
Yeah, the out of bounds hit.
Yeah. The out of bounds hit was the personal foul. And that, listen, if you're weighing this thing and you're an official and you're like, okay, I gave you a pass there. I mean, how many passes do you get? I think there were a lot of things that were going on, and I think that I hate to put words in the mouth of anybody who's not here to defend themselves or whatever, but my impression is that the officials knew that that day was a day of heightened emotion for a lot of players because of the things that were going on. And I think that A, it was Richard Sherman, and B, that situation that led to them not making that decision. I still think it was the wrong decision. I think that he absolutely should have been ejected. I think he should have been ejected after the first penalty. If he had just simply done that, tried to take Eric Decker's head off, I would have been like, that was bad, but not so. But him taking his helmet off, and he was like literally stalking the official, jawing at him down the sideline. It was bad, and he should have been ejected, in my opinion. And I like Richard Sherman.
I was going to say, I actually kind of disagree with that. When I saw it, I thought it was stupid. I mean, genuinely, it was stupid. But guys jaw at officials all the time. You have Tom Brady chasing officials down in the tunnel at halftime in order to scream at them in a similar way. And, Brady doesn't even get a penalty or any fine or anything. So
I'd find him. I'd kick him out too. But
see, that's the thing is, it's just too common of a thing. And as long as they don't make contact and as long as the words that they're saying remain within, bounds of good taste, then I just can't see kicking a guy out for that. The hit on Eric Decker was bad. It was it was bad, but at the same time, like, it's a penalty. Assess the penalty and move on. And then we can talk about the other one with Mariota on the sideline. The key point there is that when you look at the difference between the conduct penalties and the personal foul penalties, it works out that because the whole two of those personal foul types is an automatic ejection, but the two ones from early in the game didn't count towards that. So the one on hitting Mariota out of bounds did, but then it only counted as the first, even though there were those other two penalties. They're just not in that same category. So there wasn't the automatic. And so then it comes down to me. It's like, okay, do you think that the hit on Mariota was ejectable in itself? Just that hit as he's going out of bounds, was that an ejectable offense? So why, if you think it is, why do you think it is?
I think I already explained that because, and the rule's not clear. I mean, it uses, let me just pull it up because I want to use the exact terminology. If you look at the rule, it talks about conduct that is designed to be inflammatory and to draw retaliation. And that certainly did that. And it was going to, there's no team in this league where that would not have drawn that. And so, it certainly was. When this rule first came out, and it's interesting that the way they worded it, it doesn't say personal foul, but it was absolutely supposed to, when they first came out with it, include personal fouls.
So here's the thing that, like, I get that it's going to cause retaliation because it's franchise quarterback, but would it have if it was the slot receiver that got hit in that situation, or a running back? I mean, you can't say that the intention was there to cause the retaliation, because it's not like Sherman was doing this just because it was the quarterback. He was just trying to make a play. And if you look at the replay, when he actually makes contact, Mariota's out of bounds. It should definitely be a penalty, but one of his feet were still in bounds. It's not like this was way out of bounds and where it was a situation where he was just a completely blatant, he's way out of bounds type of thing. He still had a foot in bounds. He got over, he hit him in the chest. It was a little high, but it's not, he didn't go after his head, and it wasn't blatantly way out of bounds. I just didn't think that it fit in that realm.
No, I completely. Here's the. Oh, can you see it?
Wow, I see infinite regress.
Yeah. Right. Oh, there we go. Wait, no.
I can see for miles and miles and miles. I'm just here to.
Let me see if I can get. Oh, here we go. I found it. Here we go. Okay.
Technical difficulties.
Here we go. Okay. See.
There we go.
And this is where it is. It says, in addition to any other penalty referenced elsewhere. And so you've got all these other penalties, the personal fouls, the helmet, all these other penalties that do carry with them ejectable offenses. And then it starts talking about the conduct penalties and sportsmanlike conduct and all of that. Throwing a punch or a forearm, kicking, even though no contact is made. Using abusive, threatening, or insulting language. And this is the one that I'm talking about. He could have been ejected. I mean, that, even though you don't make contact, if you're doing that toward an official, and there's a one, then that's really more taunting. But by the intent of the rule, he should have been ejected. I mean, I just think that it's pretty clear.
Yeah, I just don't agree. And it's not a like for me, it's you have to look at what was going on, and he came up, he made he hit a player, he hit him in the chest.
Well,
It
okay.
was the guy. He wasn't blatantly way out of bounds. He still was. And I'm tweeting this over to you right now. It's not that the people that are watching can see that, but he still had a foot in bounds. I mean, I would have called it a penalty and said he was out of bounds, but don't think it was. It wasn't this like huge, flagrant, terrible event that you're like, oh, instantly he needs to be gone. He came over and he made it, and he made a. He hit
you don't have to
a
send
guy
it to
as
me.
he's
I've
going out of
already
bounds.
gifted. You don't have to send it to me. I've already gifted. I've already looked at it again. First of all, his teammate had already made the play. Marcus Mariota his body was that he had a foot in bounds. Please give me a break. Richard Sherman knew what he was doing. He was going for the quarterback. I think, in that moment, he probably would have been completely happy if he had taken the quarterback out. There was absolutely no reason for him to even do that. The play was made. His teammate had made the play.
I don't know. You look at Mariota is a guy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to. There you go.
Mariota is a guy that he's such a dynamic athlete. He's so good. He's a lot like Russell Wilson in that he can, turn what would normally be an 8-yard scramble into a 30-yard scramble if you give him that opening. And there are situations in Seattle's past where Colin Kaepernick, back in his heyday, did that to the team where they thought he was going out of bounds, so they pulled up and he cut up field for an extra 15 yards. So I just don't think that you can, when you've got a player like that who's that good, that you can just be like, oh, well, Wagner's got it, I can stop. And so I don't know. Like I said, I thought it was a penalty because he was far enough out of bounds, but I didn't. Get another step out of bounds, and then I think we're talking about, okay, now he's just trying to hurt someone. But it was right there. It was on the sideline. And so to me, it's like, okay, he's trying to make a play, make sure that the guy gets hit out of bounds and not and he doesn't pull up and then have the guy cut up the sideline type of thing. So
there's no way Marcus Mariota he was headed toward the sidelines. I mean, there's no way he was going to pull up or anything. He was stiff arming one defender. Another defender was, it was just completely unacceptable. And, again, I like Richard Sherman. I just think that he let his emotions get the better of him in this game. And that is really what the ejection rules and the personal foul and the unsportsmanlike conduct rules are designed to prevent is, we're all really fortunate that we're sitting here just talking about a penalty and not a really significant injury.
Yeah, he didn't go after Mariota's head, so I don't think that there was a lot of chance for that. Got him right in the chest. It was it's not one of those hits that's going to hurt someone. So I don't know. I guess we're just seeing it kind of feels like we're splitting hairs about the intent of the rule versus how it is applied on the field. So to me, it gets into this gray area where you just go, I'd rather have the players play rather than have the referees insert themselves into the narrative by throwing guys out for what they think might have been the motivation behind a play.
Yeah, I'm going to officially step in because I'm the guy who beat you both in fantasy in the last 2 weeks. And say,
ouch.
Both make excellent points. But I wanted to move on to a different subject. Now, this is the game. Now, this was the big protest week. But this was the game where none of the players were out for the national anthem. So, Sharona, when you first saw that was happening or heard that was happening, did you think it was going to happen? Because it seems like Seattle's had this history of some of the players have done some protesting, especially Michael Bennett. But the Titans, a little bit. So what did you think? I see you. You paying attention? You there?
I was just checking Twitter real quick, and it looks like the
See?
Dallas Cowboys are making a statement. Jerry Jones locking arms with the players. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
I was saying, what did you think when you saw that both teams didn't come on the field for the national anthem, and they purposely left like a helmet on the sideline to just say, "Hey, we're going to show up, just not yet."
I think that's probably the direction that we're heading. It used to be that way, that teams didn't do that. They stayed in the locker room till after it was all said and done. I don't really particularly mind, besides mandating, what a player does or does not do. I don't necessarily mind, if teams want to stay in the locker room. That's fine. Players are free to do whatever they want to in there. That's fine too. It's interesting that we are talking about the manner in which these players choose to do things instead of the reasons why. I really wish we could turn the narrative to those reasons, to the injustice that is going on each and every day that doesn't get enough attention, that doesn't get enough discussion, that doesn't get enough change.
True that.
Yeah, I mean, this people saying that the players are protesting the anthem is like saying that Rosa Parks protested public transportation. It completely misses the point. They are protesting racial injustice and police brutality. And everybody's talking about the manner of the protest and not the issue which they are trying to raise awareness to. And that is very frustrating I'm sure for them and for a lot of us that kind of support what they're trying to do. I actually was disappointed that the players stayed in the locker room. To me, I get why they did it. They didn't want to have the few players who chose not to kneel because most of the team, at least in Seattle, most of the team was going to, and a few players said they didn't feel comfortable kneeling and didn't want to. And they didn't want the team didn't want those players who chose not to join in to be singled out.
Yeah.
And so they were like, you know what, we're going to do our protest, but we're going to do it in a way that protects the players too, and that's why they stayed in. I was a little disappointed because I wanted to see the guys out there. I wanted them to make this statement kind of the way the Cowboys just did a few minutes ago, where everybody's out there, everybody's taking a knee, everyone's saying this is what we stand for and who we are. And to me, it would have been much more powerful. Having all the players in the locker room is actually what the anti-protest crowds has been asking for. They've been asking for just if the players are going to keep protesting and taking a knee during the anthem, just leave them in the locker room and bring everybody out after the anthem's over. And I'm like, well, and that's what the teams did. So they gave the anti-protest group what they were asking for. And to me, it means that they kind of lose the impact of what they were trying to do.
You know what? Something just occurred to me, and I hadn't really thought about it until now. Pete Carroll and the Seahawks and the Titans came out and said that there were discussions regarding how to handle. I am entirely convinced that the Titans would not have allowed their players to take a knee. Completely and utterly convinced. And I wonder if these discussions involved protecting the Titans from being put in that situation, and if that had any bearing on why this game might have been a little bit, because I was curious as to why it really, both these teams are a little hard edged and all of that, but Richard Sherman seemed genuinely upset, and I wonder if the Seahawks players were upset because they weren't allowed to do that. And if that is the case, I can certainly understand that. Because I know that is important to them.
The team came out and said, hey, this is what the players chose to do. And that is true. but what options were they given, right? What
Yeah.
options were they choosing from? And they chose this of options that we don't know about. And a guy like Richard Sherman, a guy like Jeremy Lane, Michael Bennett, these are guys that aren't going to take well to being told what you want to do isn't an option, so choose one of these other three things. And that is what I believe happened. And so, yeah, there's a lot going on there, a lot to unpack.
Yeah, there was a report by someone who covers the Titans, who Sharona doesn't really like, mentioned that some suite holders were going to walk out if the Titans protested. So I don't know if the not going out counted as a protest or not. But I don't think any Titans had. They had done the fist thing, but I don't think they'd actually taken a knee before.
If they had, it had not been publicized.
It's very owner driven. So when the owner leads, and so many of these owners that we generally don't like were getting out there and doing the arm thing, the Washington guy and Daniel Snyder and Shad Khan, all these guys who donated to this.
Well, in this case, I'm not exactly sure that maybe. I think that it was as much a Titans management, because I do think that Amy Adams Strunk is still in that learning phase and is still trying to get her feet and figure out what, because she was kind of thrust into this role. And, I think overall she's doing a good job. I would, maybe that's what she does want. I don't know. But, yeah, and a Titans player actually came out, and I don't remember which one it was or who he said that to, but it was made evident that those such protests were not going to be tolerated by Titans players.
Well, let's give Keith a couple of questions about the game. So, question.
And by the way, Keith, we're still buds. I still love you. Just had, yeah.
Share your good name every week. It's totally cool. The question.
When do you get to beat me at fantasy? Have you looked at the schedule?
It's coming up.
I'm not doing too well. I thought this team was going to be a lot better. I didn't lose by much. It was, 2 or 3 points, Zach? It wasn't a whole lot.
This was the week where, a lot of things went haywire. Because I had a giant week from Crabtree last week, and then this week he gets hurt and had 1.7 points. So, yeah. Thank you, Cam Newton, for being the only guy who couldn't figure out the Saints' defense. So, there you go.
Yeah, I'm really worried about Cam.
Yeah, that's it. Man, Carolina is looking definitely not as good as he has in the past. Although, and if we're talking about other teams, what are you guys' thoughts on Jacksonville? All of a sudden, that team looks like they could be legit. I mean, I know they have Bortles, and Bortles is terrible, but the rest of that team looks pretty dang good.
Yeah, I mean, they have to be the only team in NFL history. In the first 3 weeks, they've either lost or won by 3 touchdowns or more. Yeah, that whole, I guess Baltimore was kind of built the way they are. Okay, well, let's do the run game and let's hide our quarterback. And our defense is good. And if we take a lead, we can just run the ball a lot and we'll be all right. But everything was working. That's the thing with Bortles. I think Sharona probably showed that in the game. He makes some really good plays, and then he makes a dumb play. And he just made a bunch of, I think it was 3 straight drives they turned the ball over, and that was it. That turned the game over.
Yeah.
And really, that's the way the Titans have been the last 2 weeks, have been having these bursts of offense, and the rest of the game they're kind of struggling. So that was definitely unusual. But I had to I was going to get to that. Well, that's all right. This is how the show goes. We go wherever the hell we want to, whenever the hell we want to. But I thought we could stick with Titans Seahawks just for a little bit longer. So question 1 for Keith. Why does Tom Cable still have a job?
I ask that question every single day, and I have yet to get a legit answer. Yeah, the Fighting Tom Cables are not. They're not my. That is not my favorite group of people. And when you look at scouting and that kind of stuff, draft prep, offensive line is kind of my thing. That's like what I know and what I really get into and really like to study. And so I enjoy watching good offensive line play, and that makes watching the Seahawks really, really hard. It is really painful. And so, yeah, I honestly don't get how Tom Cable remains employed. I mean, it just makes no sense that they wouldn't have moved on at this point.
Well, the team made their bones clearly on drafting well for years, and they had the Super Bowl year, they had all these guys that were like in their rookie contracts, and then they had to make a decision. It's like, well, who do we pay? And they actually ended up paying just about everybody, but then that meant we have no money for an offensive line. And pretty close to no money for running backs, but clearly you can find guys who are there.
See, that storyline, well, partially true, is not completely there. 2 years ago, they tried to back up a Brinks truck to Alex Mack, and he chose to go to Atlanta. And this year, they did the same thing with TJ Lang, and he ended up in Detroit. They have tried to spend money on the offensive line, and guys just don't want to come play with Tom Cable, is really what it comes down to. And so they have struggled. And you're right, they haven't spent the money on the offensive line, but they've spent more draft capital than any other NFL team on offensive line since this regime took over. And they still cannot turn it into a competent group. They just don't develop guys. They don't take the talent that they're given and turn them into functional players. And to me, that lands on the coaching, and that would be Tom Cable. And get a guy in there who can actually develop the players, and this team would be so much better.
And of course, the next question, and I'm sure you have a great answer for this one: why is Eddie Lacy on this roster? He was actually active, didn't play, but he was active this week.
He's on the roster entirely for so they have a veteran presence in the meeting room. When they during the week, that's why they had it last year. It was this group of really young guys led by Thomas Rawls, who had a hard time getting on the field. CJ Procise was there, and he had a hard time getting on the field. Alex Collins was there. He played a lot, but he wasn't that good. So you had all of these guys in their first or second year, and so they went and they go, okay, that didn't work. We really need some experience, someone in the meeting room, someone in there, in the film room with these kids that will help them become players. And so they went out and got Eddie Lacy, thinking that, we're going to get this guy, this big physical back, likes to run people over. And instead what they got is this old, slow guy with, really bad feet because he's just overweight. And he just isn't effective, especially with as bad as the offensive line is. There's no chance for him to get up ahead of steam and run at the defense. Our running backs are missing people in the backfield in order to gain yards. And Eddie Lacy's just not going to do that. So why is he still here? I think it's just the guaranteed money. At some point, they will need a roster spot, and I expect him to be cut.
Yeah, it's almost sad about Thomas Rawls because he had such a great rookie year, and he's just been Mr. Injury guy. Uh-oh. A quick emergency in Seattle, or he had to close the door. Look at that.
Yeah. I'm back.
He's got the short area quickness. I feel like your spark score is probably
that
through the roof,
cute
right?
little voice, though, Daddy.
It's my son. He is getting home he and my wife from Taekwondo, so that's what they've been doing.
Oh.
Yeah. I stayed home and didn't go with so that I could be in the show. So
we are very honored.
So what was it? Was it a shock? I wonder, was it more of a shock for Sharona or for Keith to see the Titans get such long touchdowns in the second half. Because the Rashard Matthews touchdown was like a 2-yard pass. They went 50 yards. And then DeMarco Murray just had a freaking convoy all the way down the field. Like, he had to make 4 or 5 turns getting that touchdown. Yeah. So was it shocking to see kind of the defense kind of meet its match like that?
Well, honestly, it was the Seahawks defense is supposed to be really good against the run. And last week, if you look at the stats, it looks like they weren't, but there were 2 runs they gave up to Carlos Hyde, and the rest of the time I think it was 1.8 yards per carry was all they gave up, except for those 2 big runs. And so the defense is still pretty good, but then you look at what Tennessee was able to do, and they just did, in the second half, they did everything they wanted to at the running game. The Seahawks just had no answer. And it was, that was just domination. So I was surprised to see the domination just being that complete by Tennessee's offensive line and running backs. I wasn't surprised they were successful because the Titans are legit. I mean, that's a good team. That's a really good running team. But just the level of domination was really surprising.
Yeah, and I speaking of fantasy heartbreak, like when I heard DeMarco Murray was active, I have him and Henry in a dynasty league, and I kept Henry in the lineup. And actually at the half, like, Henry had negative rushing yards. Like, they were really bottling him up, and then he had some good runs in the second half. And, of course, as Sharona will probably say, DeMarco Murray just had that one long run. Besides that, he was kind of meh.
He actually had a few – sorry. I did – can you hear me? Okay. I did all that because I did all that because I had to sneeze, and then I had to blow my nose because I sneezed. So, it was interesting. We saw Henry, and then he got some attention. Apparently, he had a bruised thigh, which is why we saw a little bit more DeMarco Murray. But he looked good. You really couldn't tell that he was hampered early on. Early on, neither one were really picking up yardage. Both defenses were better in the first half than they were in the second half, and I think that some of it is I don't want to say fluke, but as Keith already mentioned, the Titans faked the Seahawks with that Taywan Taylor situation, and Jonnu Smith was wide open. It was just one of those games.
I still have to say I was still panicked till the end about Russell Wilson, just because he has that wizard way. There's like that 4th down play where Derek Morgan got him by the ankle, and he still, as he was falling down, like threw the ball and got it out there for a first down and kept it going.
Earlier
if you had him in
on,
fantasy, he had a great game. 4 touchdowns, 373 yards. But
I do actually have him in fantasy, and I was very happy.
I do.
The Titans are not generating enough pressure. It's especially in this game. I think Russell Wilson had, if I'm not mistaken, the highest or one of the top 3 highest quarterback ratings. His completion percentage was at 70%. I think it was ridiculously high.
That wasn't necessarily because of the lack of pressure. He was pressured on 44% of his passes. That's really, really high.
On pace, I think, for the way it's been all year. Yeah, he's used to it.
But that's a really good pressure stat for Tennessee's defense. Wilson just is insane in his ability to escape pressure and make big plays anyway.
He is, and that's what I was getting ready to say, that Ryan Ratpo actually had him locked up. This was like in the first or second quarter. I don't know. I gifted out there. You can see it. And he is amazing, and it's really hard to but the Titans weren't, their pursuit wasn't all that good. They were missing some tackles, not just on Russell Wilson, but on some other plays too.
Hey, Doug Baldwin was good. He made some people avoid. But Keith, was there a moment that you enjoyed more than the angry Seahawks fan setting fire to their child's large Percy Harvin jersey?
No. Oh, man.
About the bad reactions.
So there, this going back to the protest, is some guy on Twitter was like going off about how like he'll never be a fan again, and it's like this. It shows him lighting a jersey on fire, and then you take a closer look, and one, it's a Percy Harvin jersey. Two, it's not even a real jersey. It's like some really poorly done knockoff. And three, when you look at the size, you're like, that's probably a kid's shirt. And so it's like, okay, what are you really doing with this statement here, dude? I mean, you're burning your kids' cheap knockoff Percy Harvin jersey. So
or maybe he actually even went out and bought that to do that.
Possible, yeah. Just go to the Goodwills,
I mean,
for like $2.
What people say and what they do are often two different things.
Yep. There's been a lot of people who have been upset at Michael Bennett, and then once it came out that the team was thinking about doing something, there was a lot of outrage, and the general response to the outrage was, cool. Are you a season ticket holder? Because give up your season tickets. There's a waiting list that's 20 years long to get tickets to go to Seahawks games, and everyone would love for you to stop being a fan so we can go. And so generally, Seattle fans just really don't care at the, kind of the crazy outrage about the protests and stuff, because they really just want to be able to go to games, and you cannot get Seahawks tickets anymore. They're pretty much impossible to get at this point.
That's what I was going to say on Twitter a little while ago. Somebody was tweeting out about doing some sort of, I think it was a Veterans Day kind of thing where they boycotted the NFL, and I was like, hell yeah, people will be able to get tickets, they'll be able to go, that'll be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, really, we just don't. The waiting list for Seahawks tickets and for a lot of teams right now is really, really long. And it just, I mean, the single game tickets that go on sale for in Seattle sell out in 12 minutes. I mean, it's literally that fast. You have to be there on your computer, just being desperate, trying to get those 120 tickets they have per game that they keep for non-season ticket holders. So it's really hard to actually go to games these days. And if a bunch of fans decide they don't want to go anymore, that's more tickets for everybody else.
Let me ask you a question, Keith. That stat and I've seen that stat before. Someone on Twitter tweeted it to me. Where is that pressure stat even coming from?
That pressure stat is coming from Pro Football Focus. They're the ones who
Sharona's favorite son.
Well,
true, and I get that.
I was
a lot of what
ready.
they do is there's a lot of sketchy things about the way they grade and that kind of stuff, and I think their player grades are pointless. They're worthless, but their stats, when they actually have stats was the quarterback under pressure or not, those are better. And so the whole that the Seahawks had were 44%. Of Wilson's passes were under pressure. That seems about right. And the fact that they only had the Seahawks having Mariota under pressure for 2 passes all game, and that feels about right too. So
that didn't actually feel right to me at all. I wouldn't say sketchy. I would just say curious, because you don't know what. I mean, I think that success, I wonder how much success rate gets factored in to some of those things, because I mean, it's just interesting. So anyway.
Well, I figure we can.
I still stand by that. I don't think that the Titans are generating enough pressure overall. I think that's a concern.
They had a very Derek Morgan game, because I always say Derek Morgan's good at getting close to sacks.
I love Derek Morgan.
They had a lot of that. I started him in my IDP league, and I didn't get what I was hoping to get, but that's okay. That's my cross to bear.
You should be starting Wesley Woodyard.
True. He wasn't available. So let's talk about the NFL weekend. So the stage was really set on Thursday because everybody was like, oh, no, here come the crappy Thursday night games. It's going to suck. But that game was really entertaining, although you couldn't tell who was playing because the Rams were wearing their yellow jerseys and the 49ers are wearing their insult to the Super Bowl winning team's black jerseys. But Jared Goff actually looks like he's a decent quarterback. Once you get the Jeff Fisher away from a team, they seem to be doing much better. But that might have been the highest scoring game of the weekend. It was not. It was close. But one thing that was big this weekend is all of these AFC contenders that we thought were looking good early in the year kind of all crashed to the earth, starting with the Ravens getting demolished by the Jaguars. The Broncos showing that maybe you can't start a 7th-round quarterback as your guy. Maybe Trevor Siemian is the guy that most teams were like, who, when he got drafted. The Steelers, really, they had nothing. I'm a guy who drafted Ben Roethlisberger in the Going for Two league, and he's been worse than some random dude you can get off, Case Keenum. Oh, that hurts. And then the Raiders on Sunday night, I didn't watch any of the game, but, man, they got shut down by Washington. So that's probably good news for the Titans, seeing that except for Kansas City, most of the contending teams kind of had an off week. I don't know if anybody's got anything to say. Sharona's probably watching the game right now.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Even the Patriots had an off game, and they came back and won, but they looked very beatable throughout that game. So
yeah, see, if you wear the sunglasses, they can't tell if you're looking the other way. Yeah,
is that what's going on?
I'm having trouble
we
with
need that meme where the guy's
eye.
looking at the other girl and it's
Oh yeah,
Twitter.
Anyway,
Somebody had the Kansas City had a good week, but yeah, the Patriots defense. But man, the Texans defense, wasn't it the last drive where Chris Hogan was like wide open in the middle of the field with no one within 20 yards of him, just standing there uncovered? But man, the Texans, they had a 2-point lead and they had like 2nd and 2, and they just ran up the gut twice. And all they needed was one first down, and they had the game won.
Yep, I could not get it.
Like Bill, it's weird when like proteges of Bill O'Brien, like Belichick, play. He seems to go easy on them. Like the Texans always keep it close with the Patriots, and then at the end he's like, "All right, I'll give you a chance." And then Tom Brady came back. 6 touchdown passes, by the way. 5 for him, 1 for the other team. It's impressive. He's nice. He gives one away to their teams occasionally.
He's a very giving person. We all know this.
And Brandon Cook's making the play. Yeah,
I have to say that was a sweet play. Now, that touchdown pass to Brandon Cook, was it a touchdown or just right inside the 5-yard line? Okay,
there was like 30
It was
seconds.
very sweet. Yeah.
They definitely finally, all these years, it was almost like the Seahawks offensive line. It was like the receivers that they'd give Tom Brady every year. They'd give him like these retread guys, and Ocho Cinco was on the team, and just like, come on. And then this year, like, all right, we'll trade a 1st-round pick for Cooks. And for some reason, we always get the guys off the scrap heap that the Bills don't like that turned out to be good. I had Chris Hogan in the League of Laws, but I started him last week, I guess. But yeah, it was good.
Keith, what's your handle in our Yahoo League again?
12th Man Myers, isn't it? Or do I have something? I don't know. It's Yahoo and not the ESPN one, so I get them mixed up.
I was just curious. I was going to look it up and see. Not now while we're on the air, but
my team is a playoff Seattle secondary. It's the Legion of Boom.
Okay.
So I'm beating Jen's team by 50 points. So I think that's probably a win.
Probably.
Yeah, in week 1, Jen, I think, had the highest score in the league and beat me. And then, yeah, the last 2 weeks, she's kind of fallen apart. And, yeah, it was unfortunate, Keith, because last week I was in 2 leagues where it was the 1 versus the 2, and both times I got lucky and got to be the 1 because Golden Tate the Lions just didn't need to throw it to him last week because they were playing the Giants, who Clearly, Odell Beckham and Eli need to switch salaries because Odell Beckham finally made their offense decent. And that 4th and goal play where they gave it Orleans Darko up the gut, that was Seattle offensive line blocking. There's some bad. I mean, it's not just Seattle. There are a lot of bad offensive lines in the league.
There is a lot of offensive line problems all over the league. And, I mean, Tennessee's got a good one. Oakland's got a good one. Dallas has a good one. And everyone else has issues. There are still 31 offensive lines better than Seattle. So there are certain people in Seattle that want to use the fact that it's a league-wide problem as an excuse. And I go, I just can't give you that.
And Keith, I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is why I question that pressure stat. We all know the Seattle offensive line stinks.
Yep.
What do they consider success rate against that line? And if you go through my feed,
leaving is success.
Well, I mean, it's a real question. If you go through my feed, there's one play. Russell Wilson he could have baked a cake, iced it, and finally Jarrell Casey comes up and puts pressure. I mean, do they count that as pressure?
They do, because there was pressure when he made the throw.
But see, that's bullshit.
Yeah, because you can't give a guy like Russell Wilson that much time, because even if you do get pressure eventually, he'll do something with it. So you're
anyway,
right.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just have questions about that. I'm just mad because I predicted, dang it, a turnover for a touchdown.
See,
they should have done better. There's no question in my mind against that offensive line. They should have done better. Russell Wilson should have been, his stats should not have been that good if the Titans were really, really doing what they should have done. That's all I'm going to say.
Part of it is that I think you look at Russell Wilson started 3 of 10 for, 18 yards? That was near the end of the first half. He was 3 of 10 for 18 yards.
But he was off. I mean, he was just off.
And then everything clicked, and he just went off. I mean,
he did. It was amazing.
370-something yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. I mean, that was an incredible game.
He's so fun to watch.
Yeah, he's just a wizard. And the thing is that I kind of there are points where I really wish the Titans would take the training wheels off for Marcus Mariota, because that kid's special too. And I get it. They've got that running game, which is incredible. And when you've got it, you roll with it. Keep handing the ball off. But Mariota. I mean, I'm not an Oregon fan, but I'm Washington State, so I'm Pac-12, and so I watched Mariota this whole career at Oregon, and that kid is gonna be awesome in the NFL. I mean, he's a special player, and I'm let him play more. Just give him more chances, give him more opportunities. Good things will happen, and it's one of those games. It's too bad that the teams don't play more often because these are a couple of really good. Yeah, it's a great game. Couple of really good quarterbacks, good defenses. It'd be fun to see them play more often.
It would. I completely agree.
Sigh. So, one of the shocking results of the week was that Carolina got blasted by the Saints, and Cam Newton didn't look so good. Another team that just spit the bit were the Dolphins. So Jay Cutler, they threw a touchdown in the last play of the game with the time running out to get 6 points. But the Jets defense last week, that was one thing. The NFL is a week-to-week league. Oakland just did whatever they wanted against the Jets. And the next week against Washington, nothing. And then Oakland, the Jets defense sucked 1 week, and the next week they shut down. Well, I can't exactly call the Dolphins a juggernaut, but, they had Jai and, a few receivers, and that was one of those games that just kind of went under the radar because most people assumed that the Jets were going to lose all their games. I don't know. I don't think there's only a couple teams left undefeated. No, they're probably not that many teams that have no wins. So
I think there's
that's what I'm
3.
playing. Because
Oh,
the
undefeated.
Falcons won, yeah, because that was the local game, and my second beer is Founders. Like the state I buy probably the second most beer from is Michigan, so Founders. Sorry, Detroit fans. Sorry, Dwayne, brother-in-law. He's a UT guy and a Lions fan. Talk about heartbreak, man. He's got to go through on a weekly basis. It's tough. But that when I first saw that touchdown, because Detroit on the last play of the game threw a slant to Golden Tate, who, by the way, was on your fantasy team, so that must have made you happy. Good thing it had nothing to do with the result this week. But they gave him the touchdown, and then they took it away, and it did look like he fell down, right in front. He didn't quite Kevin Dyson it. He was right there.
You had to go there, Zach.
And they did the 10-second rule. Well, you're wearing the Randy Moss, it's a...
I am. Randy Moss.
84, the original 84.
84, baby.
Where Davis
84, baby.
Handle it.
He's going to be fine.
Things like, so Detroit came back. That was a weird game, too, in that Matt Ryan, threw 3 interceptions, and he didn't have a multiple interception game last year. Pick 6. Matthew Stafford's always just kind of one of those guys that hangs along and keeps him in the game, and then they end up about 2 inches short of victory. And they do that 10-second runoff thing. Like, if they had known, they might have been able to get a playoff, but I don't know. They're another team that could not run it 1 yard if they tried because they just don't have that. But, of course, the Giants, the Giants looked absolutely horrible, but then they realized Odell Beckham was on the team. Odell Beckham had probably the worst touchdown celebration of the week, the dog peeing thing that they wouldn't even show on the replay on, the Fox network. It was funny. And then the kicker just blasted the 61-yarder. It's like, no big deal now. Did
you see his tweet where he confirmed that was in reference to being called a son of a bitch? So he did the dog pee.
So that's deep thinking right there.
Yeah, well, I don't.
Because I drafted him in the first round, he finally did something.
See, I didn't realize that it was in relation to being called that. What I saw was the quote was, "I'm a dog, so I act like a dog," and I'm like, okay, that's great. I don't know. This is one of those one of those celebrations that I don't get. It's like Doug Baldwin had one a few years ago where he made it look like he was pooping the football.
I didn't like that one either.
Oh, God, come on, dude. And I love Doug Baldwin. He's a great player, but that's about as bad as it gets right there.
One position in the NFL that's crazier than the rest. Maybe it's because wide receivers think they're so talented, but they only get a few touches a game, so they go insane. But that's just And so last week Tampa blew out the Bears, no big deal. But then this week against the Vikings, it was just assumed they were going to win. And then Case Keenum just tears them up. I mean, obviously Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen are pretty good players because, Stephon Diggs had 170 yards. He's probably the top receiver this week. The guy I have 0 shares of in any fantasy league. Oh, sigh. I had a very narrow pool. But Sharona, you'll be happy to hear. This is the good news for you. Apparently, Andrew Luck's coming back for the Week 6 Titans-Colts Monday night game. That's what I'm hearing.
I saw that.
Your Scott Fishbowl team may survive.
I've got 4 quarterbacks. Surely I'll be okay, which was not my intention, but here we are. It's interesting, and Chris Ballard came out today and said, in response to a question, I believe, was Jacoby Brissett playing himself onto another team, and he said, well, possibly it's a good problem to have. So he's been pretty good.
Well, I'll get a chance to see a lot of Jacoby Brissett this coming week because they're coming to Seattle, so that'll be fun. Because this week they looked okay. I mean, they beat a really bad Cleveland team, but before this week, they looked like they could be one of the worst teams that we've seen in a really long time. So, I'm not real excited about the Colts, but I'm excited about Seattle getting an easy win, I hope.
We'll see.
I'd like that. I don't even care. It's like, if it's week 15 and the Colts have 1 win, I'm like, could the Titans beat them? because they haven't beat them in a long time. I don't think any team in the NFL has a longer winning streak than the Colts have over the Titans. It's like 11 games, if not more.
I don't think they've ever won in that stadium, have they? I don't think they have.
Yeah, they get Peyton. And then the one year they were like tanking when Peyton was hurt, they beat the Titans to keep them out of the playoffs. God, that's so embarrassing. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, Curtis Painter, right? No more Scott Tolzien, you know?
You were talking about Stefon Diggs being the number one receiver. So in our fantasy league, the going for 2 league, he scored 37.3 points. And I know that because he's on my team. So there. It's just part of the reason how I beat Jen by 50 points.
Someone asked me if they should sit him this past week, and I was like, no, he should have he should have had better stats the week before that. But he got hosed on one call, another reception was called back. He was called for offensive pass. It was crazy. So I was kind of happy to see that, because a lot of my other, the Ravens defense, of course they were missing one of their best D linemen, and then they lost another. They were down to like 2 healthy defensive linemen, which was kind of crazy anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at our Yahoo scores, and I saw that Kareem Hunt was number 1, Todd Gurley's number 2, Tom Brady's number 3, and Chris Thompson is number 4. Chris Thompson has like 6 touchdowns this year or something crazy, and he doesn't have a bunch of touches really.
That is crazy.
Yeah, yes. my Rob Kelly shares. Rest in peace.
So, Sharona, approximately how many minutes after the Tennessee-Georgia game will Butch Jones get his buyout?
I think they'll let him coach out the year unless he says something else stupid like he did today. So we'll see.
And Keith, if you decide to start like a brewery, what are you going to call it?
That is a good question. I've actually been trying to come up with a good answer.
I want to drink beers with Keith.
One of my first idea when I started homebrew was to have quantum brewing, because I have my degrees in physics. I know, I'm a geek. But so that was my idea, and so I went up and actually started looking at it and see if it was available and whatever. And there's somebody had that idea, and they've got everything trademarked. So I got to come up with something new. Haven't done it yet.
There's got to be a Legion of Boom beer somewhere in Seattle, just considering the sheer number of breweries.
Oh, there's probably multiple ones. Not that I found it yet, but I'm sure that there are a lot. I mean, they're in just Seattle alone, not even going outside like Bellevue and some of the suburbs. There's something like 28 breweries just in the city.
Wow.
And then if you go out into the suburbs, there's hundreds. I actually live south of there in Vancouver, which is this little, it's not really little, not little, but it's a fairly small city. It's a suburb of Portland, and we have like 33 breweries just in Vancouver. It is a lot of beer around here, and I'm not complaining. Make sure that that's clear. I'm very happy there's a lot of beer here because, well, it's good.
Beer is good.
Yes, it is.
I don't know if it's 17 in Atlanta or Georgia, and because they've loosened up our laws, a lot of the breweries in town have opened like a second location, so you're pretty much set. And now you can actually go into a bar and order a beer at a brewery. It's a crazy thing. Now, Sharona, Don actually did send more questions for you, but we've like passed our hour, so we'll have to save maybe next week. And there's Monday Night Football, even though all my fantasy games have, I think, been determined. I guess Scott Fishbowl, I might actually.
I was up big in Scott Fishbowl.
In a dog fight, because I think I have, it's like Dak and JJ Nelson, and I have Dez, and I'm up by like 18. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So let's.
I was up by like 50.
Let's see. So Keith, what do you have? What's going on? You know, your articles, podcasts, everything that people can check out.
Right now, you can find me on Twitter, which is Myers NFL. You can find my podcast, which is hawksplaybook.com, and that's where the Seahawk podcast is. And my writing does not have a home at the moment because I am currently a free agent. I have left where I used to write, and I'm looking for a landing place where I can, find a home for my writing. So I'll probably be doing some on the podcast website just for fun. But yeah, to look for me to pick up some writing responsibilities here soon. I just can't seem to stop doing it.
We need your voice. We need you on that wall. We want you on that wall. Sharona, what you got?
Well, of course, you can find me on Twitter at Sports by Sharona. And as usual, on Wednesday night with Zach, this is Monday night, we're doing a special time ongoing for 2. And I announced this last week. I'm the AFC coordinator for what was formerly NFL Female and is now Our Turf football, and of course at Inside the Pylon.
I did the show, and last week I was going to an Atlanta baseball game, and I'm still a little torn on the team name, but I did enjoy the fact that they do have a brewery in the new stadium, so I got to enjoy beer there. And this Wednesday I'm going to see Father John Misty, so that's why we're doing it Monday night. It's fun. I'm glad Keith got on here. I'm glad that you and Sharona did not get into Taylor Lewan.
Fisticuffs next time. Fisticuffs, baby.
Somebody's getting a flag. I should have a flag and throw it at my screen.
I got a little hot.
Oh yeah,
I know. I want to get the live feed. If
That's my quarterback.
Don't hurt. He gets hurt every year. Somehow Russell gets beat.
Don't hurt him.
Yeah. We need him.
We need him.
We hope we have in life.
No Matt. We don't want no Matt. No Matt.
Yes.
So is it Castle or Cassell? Because I never can.
It's Succo is what it is. Thanks, Keith, for being on again, and for
anytime, guys.
Defeat you, and thanks, Sharona, for being on again. And as we like to finish up, good night and kiss my grits.